torrential rains that took place over the weekend and completely battered and wreaked havoc across northern India. We're still looking at a death toll that is continuously rising. Rescue operations are still on for almost 300 people that are stuck higher up in Himachal Pradesh at the Chandratal Lake excursion. We're still getting visuals from all those rescue operations. In Kullu Manali, you can see that the Chief Minister is already on the ground taking stock of the situation and has made possible for people and tourists that are stuck in upper Himachal Pradesh. They had gone there to beat the heat, to kick their feet up higher up in the mountains, but it seems like ever since the rains, the flash floods, the almost 4,000 crore rupee damage to property that has taken place, cars being washed away, pools being washed away, proper houses submerged in these rivers. And it's not just Himachal Pradesh. The situation is same in Punjab, in Jammu and Kashmir. The pilgrimage for the Amarnath Yatra continues to be shut for the consecutive days now. The rain toll in the north of India has risen to 91, ladies and gentlemen. What you're seeing to the left side of your screen is what transpired, and what you're seeing to the right side of your screens is what is the situation looking like right now. People are pulling their phones out, trying to click pictures, trying to make Instagram reels and stories about kind of devastation and destruction that has taken place. But we have lost a lot of lives. Flash floods have damaged a lot of property, and this is not just property. We're talking about very crucial heartlines like various national highways upper high in the mountains. Manali, Kullu, Chandratal, Spiti Valley. Damage was felt far and beyond. The spate of rivers all flowing above the danger mark. The Beas, you've got the Roper and Satluj in Punjab that are still trying to wreak havoc. Chopper operations to rescue the 300 tourists in Himachal Pradesh failed. Cars have now gone up there. They're still trying to beat their way through the snow. Many of them have been rescued. They were brought back to a lower height in the Spiti Valley, but still that process of coming down to the heartland in the national capital or your plains from the mountains still seems to be a task. Nobody can go into these tourist destinations anymore. You can only come out of there right now, even as the government agencies are trying to make a safe way and passage for all these cars to come out. These are iconic visuals that you're seeing. Look at the water level and how much it has receded within 24 hours, even as more deaths were counted, and 21 people were killed in the last 24 hours, 8 due to falling of rocks in Uttarakhand alone. So in the mountainous region where the topography is very rocky in nature, landslides and rock slides have now become common. Just a day or two after the torrential rains, there is more rains that that are expected. Not heavy or extremely heavy rainfall, but moderate to light rainfall that is still expected. If we take a look at what's happened in the national capital, Yamuna is in spate, just 2 meters below the absolute danger mark. Villagers are worried, but what you're looking at right now are the rock slides. Look at the magnanimity of this particular rock slide. There is no passing this, and clearing up the debris of this particular rock slide will also take, it's safe to say more than 2 days, with the kind of size and the velocity at which the rocks fell down. Fortunately, not a lot of cars in this particular area, but 8 people have died in Uttarakhand related to landslides. These are visuals of big, huge sized trucks that are pretty much going for a swim. And now you're looking at, to the right side of your screens, this is the same place where the water has completely reduced. You could probably drive your truck, or maybe I'm exaggerating right now, but your truck isn't swimming like the way it is towards the left side of your screen. Take a look at this. The cars again being swept away, washed away. It's almost as if like a human's going for a swim, or it's a kayak or a raft at an adventure sports event. And after the water has receded, evaporated, all kinds of scientific processes that must have taken place. What it has left behind is to the right sides of your screens. Just sludge, concrete-like material with various kinds of metals, iron rods, uprooted trees, barks and trunks, all part of this particular sludge that has fixated. It's almost like concrete. Things are stuck inside this sludge, and this particular sludge, the mud, the soil, and all the hazardous remnants inside it have in fact seeped inside homes. They have decreased the integrity of soil and roots in various areas and plantations. If you talk about Punjab and Haryana, various sugarcane fields and crop fields have been inundated, spoiling the crop. There is major crop damage now that the farmers are facing. In the national capital, it's the Yamuna. I mean, you don't have those streets anymore, streets full of water anymore. There's no major flooding. Politics, of course, and brinkmanship is happening on the sidelines, but water has receded. Again, you can see what happened in Himachal Pradesh. Visuals of the flow of the river. Varghese, these are, I mean, positive signs now that the water has gone down these bridges. We were talking about how these small bridges and wooden bridges and pulls are heartlines between small villages, and how they transfer essential commodities, relief material. You talk about medicines and cooking oil. All of that happens through these small pulls and bridges. They've been washed away, but now wherever they've managed to prevent being washed away, the water has gone down, but the integrity and the strength of these bridges is going to be questionable now.
What you said is right, because right now a lot of soil would have been deposited around it. It had been shaken up, and there will be a big problem when it comes to the issue about how these bridges are going to function. You have to repair them, and some of them have been tossed like tin cans as well. So the situation that a lot of people are going to look at is, first of all, try to restore the primary infrastructure as fast as possible, and ensure that connectivity between the hills as well as the bridges that we see are restored as fast as possible. But then, Kabir, water finds its own level, and every time when it rains in the catchment areas, right now what you see is that the rains have ebbed at the catchment areas, and that is why you see the flow of the water being less.
Look at the devastation. Look at the destruction on the on the shore of the river. The inside houses are still intact, but the ones that are right on the periphery, right on the shore, right on the bank, they've been damaged. And again, speaks volumes about the encroachment that has happened. I mean, if you come in the way of the water, what do you expect? I remember Bruce Lee saying that one should be like water. That's how you should flow. Water takes the shape of any container that you put it in, but if you put in more water than the container can hold, well, then the water starts sipping out, spilling out, and it just encapsulates anything that comes in its wake.
Well, what you actually pointed out is correct. I mean, you cannot, steam water like that. But then the manner in which we can see from the drone visuals, we can see that the entire roads have been washed away. Places that have been technically considered to be secure. You can see how that concrete platform and those walls have been built to keep the road safe. But here we can see how the road has been completely washed away.
And these are important roads. These are important roads. Look at the tarmac. Look at the cement that is used. You can still see the white lines on that. The demarcations. Here again, a part of the road that has properly caved in, and people, it's again a tourist spot. I mean, it's amazing to see that, humans have a tendency of finding the best in even the worst of the situations. But again, what kind of pressure will this put on the ruling dispensation in Himachal Pradesh, the fresh Congress government?
If you can see from this drone visual, you can see how much of the river has actually changed sides, and now it's flowing where the road was once. So it has just taken its natural course, and it's after the flood waters did come down the hill, you can see the way the river has meandered its course, and that is how it has washed away that particular section of the road as well. Now, earlier it would have been, if you look at the normal course of the river, you would have noticed that most of these houses seem to be far away from the riverside. But now when you take a closer look, it shows that most of these houses were well within what we would call as the possibility when the river bursts its bank. So it was very close to the place where the river was bursting its bank, and the kind of destruction that you see over here just shows that the houses near the river banks were washed away completely. And you can see amount of trees, uprooted trees that have also landed up at that particular juncture. So right now, it's going to be assessment of damages, but then when it comes to construction activity, how would you still try to make safe these particular portions of the riverside, because it is going to be a very, very difficult task. And you can see the huge structure that is also very close to that river.
Fortunately, still standing erect.
But again, remember, the water does have the ability to erode, and it has eroded the foundation of several strong bridges.
So let's just say they rebuild this particular national highway, they rebuild this particular portion of the road. Do you think it's going to be less strong than it was before?
See, they will go by whatever engineering principles are there. Whatever engineering principles are there, they would be in fact going and building it. They would also look at how the topography of the land is, because they'll have to go through the river itself. They have to build it. As far as we know, this road follows the river's course. So it is going to be built parallel to this particular river. So it is going to be a Herculean task to restore connectivity and to rebuild this road as fast as possible. But again, how long will you be able to maintain this? Because if this is the kind of rain and torrential kind of rains that we are seeing, and the kind of flash floods we are going to see, there is no road that can be this proof. So the destruction is going to come and go, and the cycle of rebuilding is also just going to keep on going on.
And what do you think must be going on in the minds of the people, the local residents of Himachal Pradesh, of Uttarakhand? Rains is something that they see every year. Forest fires is something that they see every year. Landslides, rock slides, this is all pretty much common. But events like these, I mean, the 2013 incident of flash floods and cloudburst, and ever since then we've had, every year we've been having these extreme weather events. But this time around, I mean, you've pretty much received excess rainfall for the month of July within 48 hours. And that excess is to the tune of 100% excess.
See, this is going to keep happening as long as climate change is there. So what we can do is actually mitigate, have an early warning system, better response to IMD alerts. This is the only way we can actually mitigate what is going to happen. But we have to be prepared for such kind of weather events in the long haul, and also be prepared for the frequency of such weather events as well. So the authorities now need to have a drill in place whenever these alerts are put in place. And what we can do is only mitigate the crisis. We cannot avoid it, but only mitigate the crisis, and also probably look at new technologies where it can stand the force of nature. But again, these are all wishful thinkings as of now. And you see the river is still in spate, and it's in full strength. It's still in spate, and it still flows through those areas. Only thing is that the water level or the water inflow into these rivers have reduced.
And that's all. So the situation is still pretty much.
It's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. There's so much of.
But at least there's movement now. We earlier heard the Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh. He was talking about how people have started leaving Manali. The way is so small. Only a single passage can be. A car can be transported on that road, and that's how it's being done. So nobody can enter these hill stations anymore. But tourists from these hill stations, people have been stuck there for now 2 or 3 days. Trains are cancelled. You can't possibly get to the airport. Your car can't possibly get to come to pick you up wherever it is that you are. But yes, I mean, of course, the cars can go for a little swim. Look at that car sunbathing in the in the sand on the right. But that's all the cars can do. The vehicles can't get to you. The taxi drivers and their income has taken a major hit. But people are stuck, and now finally, with the help of the government, people are starting to move out. Some rescue operations have also taken place of those 300 people that were stuck in Chandratal. What's next, Varghese, is $1 million question right now. 4,000 crore rupees worth of destruction and damage that has been recorded. It's the first estimate. It could be way more than this.
Well, it can be way more than this. The first estimate, as you rightly pointed, is around 4,000 crores. 40 shops and 30 houses have been washed away is what we have, another statistic coming in. And at the same time, the wanton destruction that we have in fact seen over here, it just shows that why I call it wanton destruction is because these are built near very ecologically sensitive zones. They are built in areas that could result in this kind of torrential flow in the river, especially when there are rains, heavy rains in that area. And this time also we had a weather phenomenon where there were heavy rains in the region only because of the kind of interaction between two disturbances. I mean, one is of course the monsoon, the other is the western disturbances, and this had led to these heavy rain. But again, right now what we understand is that there is a 2-day red alert that has been issued for Uttarakhand. There could be heavy rains in certain parts of that district, but the IMD has given a red alert, and therefore the authorities are working on that red alert aspect of it. But the torrential rains that we are seeing only exposes the kind of problems that we are going to have with our infrastructure, especially when it comes to Himachal. We've seen how many bridges have been completely destroyed, and the bridges consist of many types of bridges. You have a Pakka concrete bridge, you have a steel bridge, you have a normal wooden bridge, you have a very lightly built bridge with only ropeways and one wooden plank, which is locally built for people to just walk through across the river. So you have seen so many such bridges that are there in the area, which have all been washed out by these torrential rains and the flooding that occurred in the river. And probably there's a lot of silt that is also going to accumulate in the dams below. This silt, of course, was because of the heavy flow that we see in the upper catchment areas, and therefore we are going to see a lot of the silt being deposited in the dams as well. Right now, I think the only efforts that can be done by the authorities is to assess what has happened and to see what can be further done. As you pointed out, the biggest movement right now is for tourists who are trapped to move from their locations. And if that can be restored, it's going to be quite a harrowing experience for them. But it looks like some of them have been able to make it once the rains have ebbed down. So I think ensure that we will be able to monitor the situation right now. And I said we can only mitigate the crisis and we can control the situation from the viewpoint that getting people out, getting essential supplies out. But
Varghese, even as the water is receding up in the mountains, well, it's not evaporating, it's all coming down. And in the national capital, let's play some visuals from, Delhi, where the Yamuna is now reaching that particular danger mark. Thousands that are living on floodplains have been forced to move out as the Yamuna breaches the danger mark. So even as we're looking at this then and now, the before and after, visual compilation of what's happened in Himachal Pradesh, this situation is the same for Punjab, for the national capital. Of course, Jammu and Kashmir fortunately did not see as much of flash floods as Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand, but the situation certainly is dire for all those people that have lost their homes and their livelihoods during these flash floods. There are proper hotels that have gone down. Do you think the government is going to come out and compensate them for the same? There is a state disaster relief fund that is in place.
Well, you have, of course, there is going to be compensations that would be given out to people who have been affected by this. But if it's going to become very frequent, the question would be that it could be a huge expense on the state's exchequer as well. So right now, I think there are reports warning about the uncontrolled constructions that's happening, the development projects that are happening in these economically sensitive zones, and probably there were warnings that were given by environmentalists long ago when activities did happen. We did see an environment assessment report when the Uttarakhand floods had happened, and it had stated as to what led to the kind of flooding and the destruction that we saw. So this unprecedented development in the area could be one of the reasons for it. But as of now, I think the only way that things could go forward on the ground right now is just to mitigate and assess what is the kind of damages that.
Do you think the death toll is also something that can go up? I mean, we're looking at 91 people.
Today morning we did see about 90 people dying in this thing, but then there is also the aspect of how much of agricultural destruction has happened in these floods, and that is going to be also a cause of concern, especially that agriculture being the mainstay of all our states where there's a huge population dependent on it. These unseasonal rains and of course the kind of destruction that we see, how it is going to bring out the agricultural distress in these states are also to be closely monitored.
I mean, even in Punjab, women and children are being rescued from Jalandhar district, from Ambala. It's a landslide that was triggered by heavy monsoon rain. Because, you see Punjab, Chandigarh, those are the foothills. That's the way that you start ascending towards the mountains. So Punjab, the state, the land of the 5 rivers, and Ropar and Satluj, 2 of those rivers have really wreaked havoc because of these torrential rains. In Punjab as well, do you think this is going to be more pressure for the Bhagwant Mann-led government?
Punjab and Haryana also, we did see that there have been huge areas of farmland
that funny video about the crocodile in Ambala, that was really, funny to look at. And of course, people have done their own sorts of, fact checks, saying that this was an old video. But, well, WhatsApp University, you can never really, call WhatsApp University out for the good, for the bad. It's here to stay, certainly. Everything is happening on WhatsApp these days. But the rain is still continuing to batter North India, where we've looked at 20 deaths in just the last 24 hours across 4 different states. In Rajasthan, Varghese, heavy to very heavy rainfall was recorded in isolated parts, and 1 rain-related fatality was reported in Pratapgarh district. Shivganj in Sirohi district recorded the highest 13-centimeter downpour in a 24-hour period that ended on Tuesday morning. So in Rajasthan, it is still raining. I mean, Gujarat was already prepared for this new, for the cyclone development that we saw towards the latter half of the month of June. But now the torrential rains, Rajasthan, Haryana, Himachal, Punjab, it has ebbed in some places and pelted down in others. But the bottom line remains that a lot of damage, a lot of deaths, and the bigger question, are we prepared for something like this the next time around?
I think we cannot be prepared right now, because right now the biggest challenge would be to restore connectivity as fast as possible. And because these connectivities have been disturbed, especially between villages and towns in these hilly regions, the first priority would be to restore whether it's road connectivity or the use of helicopters. In fact, the use of helicopters also did not go down well because the weather was very inclement and flying had become a very big risk. So there are a lot of places that are still, completely shut down, and here these are the visuals of this, landslides that have occurred in Himachal. Several places there have been reports of landslides happening as the mountains tend to move as such, and no matter how much of retaining wall is kept, the boulders keep falling down, and all this is in fact damaging the road as well as.
These are the officials trying to take stock of the situation over there. The engineering principles that will have to be looked at. Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister trying to take stock of the situation from the helicopter, which again is something that I don't understand. But then at the same time, one has to take note of the fact that it's impossible for the Chief Minister.
In fact, the Chief Minister, the only way for the Chief Minister to access any of these areas or to understand is the only way is to actually take the helicopter, because most of the roads are completely washed away, and it is impossible to reach any of these areas without flying over the place. So that is the reason why
these aerial shots, Varghese, are giving us a good sense of understanding about how inhabited these places are. Do you think we're overpopulating some of these places? I mean, like Shimla, sometimes you can't even stand there in Manali Mall Road. There are evenings where it looks like Sarojini Nagar or Connaught Place.
Well, ecologically sensitive areas, and you have the residents themselves are staying over there. Then you have the huge number of tourists who've been flocking into these areas as well. So all of them together is contributing to the kind of a situation that we see over here. So right now, I think if we are trying to say that should development in these areas be stopped, well, we can't put that across. But it is a warning sign that has come up, and these rains have only woken us up again about what actually could happen in these ecologically sensitive zones and areas, especially when there is unbridled development happening in these areas. And you are in the path of nature completely, and therefore we cannot tame it as we wanted. But
people are also saying that this is not climate change. Please understand that this is not climate change. This is just a peculiar and an anomaly where two weather disturbances, two weather systems have merged together
and interacted with each other.
To give us a devastating.
But that is again, it's a
devastating
one-off thing. It's an anomaly at the end of the day. It is one of a thing that has happened, and these rains. In fact, Kabir, you would have known that the monsoons were running in deficit until the last
Quite
2 weeks.
ironic, isn't
and
it?
today it has just made up for most of the deficit that has happened. So the heavy rains have happened because of this western disturbance, and the monsoons together has made up for the rain deficit the country has been facing.
Well, let's also talk about Haryana. As many as 7 people have died and 2 have gone missing in Haryana during the recent rain since Sunday. On Tuesday, a major breach in a Narvana branch canal, because of the overflow of water in it in Kurukshetra district, submerged thousands of acres of land. Kurukshetra SP Surendra Singh Bhoria, he told the Indian Express, which is where I'm reading this copy from, that the canal was carrying a huge quantity of water and efforts were on to fix the breach. Sources said that the canal started overflowing when the water of the Markanda river started mixing in it near Jhansa village of Kurukshetra. So add Haryana to that list of Punjab, Himachal, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, Jammu and Kashmir. It's pretty much the entirety of North that has taken a huge beating.
Yes, it is beating, and also Haryana and Punjab, there have been reports of several bunds that were supposed to, which are local check dams that are there, which have also been breached. So right now there is supposed to be a huge breach in one of the bunds. So there are around 200 feet wide breach is what is being reported. That is being looked into right now by the local authorities there. So there is a huge breach of these check dams that have happened, which has also resulted in the flooding that we see, especially of the farmland areas. Now the question is how much of crops have been destroyed because of this flooding in these areas.
We're already looking at a situation where tomatoes and the price of tomatoes, I mean, there are so many memes that are doing the rounds of social media saying that, petrol is at places cheaper than tomatoes. People are stocking up on tomato. There's news about people keeping bouncers and, bodyguards right in front of their stalls so that nobody even picks up a single tomato off of their, carts. At this point in time, given that the strain on agriculture, this is certainly not going to go down well when we're looking at food security. I know this is not a problem for the entire nation, but it does put pressure and questions the food security, doesn't it?
Well, as of now, we have enough of buffer stocks, and I think the government will also mitigate if there is going to be a shortage. But the biggest issue here for us right now is to speak about what about those tourists. Are they going to in fact make their way out? It's going to be an arduous journey out from these places, and it's going to be quite an arduous journey for them, because many have been saying that they want to reach the airport. They had their flights yesterday. Some said that they had their flights in the morning. They had, in fact, this rain has completely shaken up their plans. So a lot of people
What would you do?
stuck.
What would you do, Varghese, if you were stuck in Manali and something like this happened? The roads had pretty much caved in. What would be your go-to?
Well, of course, the attempt would be to get out of the place as fast as possible, but then you will have to keep in touch with the authorities as well to find out what exactly is happening and what are the other options available.
Imagine 500, 600 people in Manali.
All of them will be doing
all
the same.
looking
All
to get out. That means that's a recipe for disaster.
It's going to be so you have to wait out and see. Slow. You should be getting out in batches. Right now, but then it's going to be a pinch on your pocket because you have to stay in the place where you're probably not going to get food.
And let's not forget, whilst the tourists want to head out of Manali, or let's say Manali for example, there are people who would want to come back to their homes in Manali. There are people who would want to come back, and the roads, can they take dual-way traffic right now?
No, the roads. I mean, there are very few roads that are motorable right now. And even motorable roads, there is the danger of it, especially when it comes to the hills of boulders falling onto it. So
look at that! Look at that!
That's what I was trying to say. Like there's a high chance that any of these roads could get blocked anytime right now. So I think it is a very, very dangerous situation for those who are on the road as well. But then,
I mean, I'm at a loss for words. I'm trying to understand, looking at this visual, that, I mean, how long, if this road is an important road, if this is the only way to connect point A to point B, then how long do you think it's going to take to clear out this particular debris of the rock slide, the landslide? I mean, something that started as a landslide seems like has ended as a rock slide. What do you think? How long is it going to take? Look at the size of the earth movers right next to it, Varghese, as well. As soon as the visual is beginning, you can take a look at the size of the three earth movers that are standing on this side. Take a look at that, over there.
this is going to take a
How long do you think it's going to take?
This is going to take a hell lot of time, Kabir. To clear that pathway, it is going to take a hell lot of time. And it's not going to be easy also, because the earth movers are also on a ground that could be shaky and dangerous. The landslide would have already created trouble for the foundation of this road that is already there. So they have to proceed with a lot of caution. When
You know,
it
a
comes
small
to
landslide in these areas usually ends up taking about 2 hours. A small landslide, a quick, an earth mover comes in, is pressed into action. It comes in, it does its job, and you're quite, appalled at the fact, and it's quite mind-boggling to look at the earth mover, carry out its task, and the man inside that particular earth mover, the way with which it is moving that machinery is also quite, eye-catching. It's heartwarming to see somebody who's putting their lives on the line to clear out a way so that buses can then cross each other. But a single small rock, a single small, scale landslide ends up taking about 2 hours. That is not a landslide, ladies and gentlemen. That is, what do you call that? A mountain slide? You call it a portion of the mountain has pretty much slid down, and Joshimath subsidence, are the pressure humanity is putting on ecologically sensitive areas, that is all coming into under question. I know these torrential rains weren't part of climate change, but maybe the weather disturbances that got mixed up, maybe those and the intensity of those weather disturbances were part of the climate change.
Well, as far as climate change goes, we have seen a change in our climate patterns. We have seen a change in our rainfall. Sometimes you find something like this, like excess rainfall happening, or sometimes you actually find very less of it. So this is, of course, we were looking at a deficit monsoon, but it has been made up by these sudden rains that have hit the north of the country. And well, I think the only way is to keep monitoring the weather and to have a better forecast system that would look at all these aspects, that it could be communicated to all these areas in the areas in Himachal Pradesh where tourists are also there. I mean, the local system and the authorities should be robust enough to take in all these weather warnings that have been given.
Certainly. That's the Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh on the ground now, trying to take stock of the situation. Great photo opportunity as well. Chief Minister Sahab bahar nikle hain. He has stepped out trying to take stock of the situation. So, I mean, photographs will be clicked, won't they, Varghese? And, young girls, young boys, clicking pictures with them is, of course, always looked at positive photo optics. But the common people must be really happy with the fact that the Chief Minister has stepped out. It seems like the government is willing to compensate people for the kind of damages that they have incurred. To all the people that are watching this show right now, really get down into the comment section and, help us understand if you have any anecdotes to share, if any one of your relatives or friends or family, loved ones are, still stuck up high in the mountains, in the north, in the areas where torrential rains have wreaked havoc. We're looking at the Chief Minister now, sharing a meal at one of those relief camps, because these relief camps have been set up. So what better way of inspecting a relief camp than going there, sitting with the people and, sharing a meal with them, Varghese?
Well, the relief camps have also been crowded, is what we hear in certain places, and therefore the supplies are also running low. But the Chief Minister is taking stock of the situation in Himachal Pradesh, and he is in touch with the authorities to supply the essential items as fast as possible. But then I told you the issue is that in most places these items can be supplied only from the air, and because the land routes have been completely destroyed or the roads have been washed away, the access to all these areas is going to be very difficult. And of course, is getting these relief materials is the only way that we can. There are villages that are still completely marooned, and we are still trying to make some kind of communications with those villages as well. So right now, I think those who are at the relief camp, of course, they will be having their supplies. But when it comes to this place, where there are several isolated villages and towns, the only option is to airdrop the essential supplies to these places.
Well, the Indian Express, and I have a copy of the newspaper from today, it says it has tried to explain the climate, extreme rain events in the month of July. It says the recent wet days in North India are not unusual. Over the last 10 years, such events have occurred repeatedly. Now, the trends in monsoon rainfall, there's the daily actual, the daily normal, and the daily departure. This is of the rainfall data. I highly advise people to check out this particular copy on the Indian Express. It says in terms of the role of climate change, it says such events are routinely attributed to climate change, but without a proper attribution assessment, scientists are reluctant to describe them as such. In India, only two rainfall triggered events, the 2013 Uttarakhand disaster and the 2017 Chennai floods, have so far been assessed by attribution studies to have been caused by climate change. So the Kerala flood of 2018 is a candidate, but scientific studies so far are inconclusive. In general, though climate change is known to increase the possibility, the frequency and the intensity of extreme weather events, including heavy rainfall and heat waves, overall rainfall during the monsoon has remained more or less constant over the last 2 decades, but the intra-seasonal variation has increased. That means that fewer days are producing a bulk of the seasonal rainfall while the rest of the days remain dry. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, that again, it depends upon the assessment that we are in fact trying to look at. But as you rightly pointed out, we cannot club every event into a climate change map as such. But there are normal weather conditions also which have to be reported over here. And because these normal weather conditions also, there could be a one-off event such like this that has happened over here. But then you need to have further studies to find out whether this is also something that had to do with climate change, because it is the most popular word that people are using for climate change and weather change and the entire change in global weather. It's very easy to fit it into them, but it could be a local issue as well. As we were saying, these are actually interactions between two weather systems, and that is why this rain happened.
This is extremely heavy but not unusual. The chart also shows how extreme rainfall events in the last 4 years, since 2019, 2020, 2021 and 2022, these 4 years, the extreme rainfall events have been pretty much similar. In 2019, we had 500 extreme weather events. In 2020, 2021 and 2022, you had near about, on an average, 320 extreme weather events, and that number has remained constant over the last 4 years. If you look at the monsoon rainfall since the year 2005, in 2005 it was 874 millimeters in totality. In 2022, it was 940 in totality. So not a lot of gain per se, and it has remained the same: 889, 943, 877, 700, 900, 823, 937. 780, 765, 864. I mean, the list goes on. But the idea is that it's in the higher 700s to earlier 900s in terms of total millimeter of rainfall, and that is the same. There's another chart that talks about major extreme rainfall events since 2013. Now, 2013 you had Uttarakhand, 2014 was Kashmir, 2015 Chennai, 2016 Bihar, 2017 Chandigarh, 2018 Kerala, 2019 Pune, Kolhapur, 2020 Maharashtra, 2021, remember the Assam floods, Assam, Meghalaya, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Uttarakhand all faced extreme weather events. 2022, we know what happened in Amarnath, the cloud burst right ahead of the pilgrimage and and its commencement. Gujarat, Odisha, Assam and Bengaluru. And 2023, we're almost looking at the halfway mark of the year, and extreme weather event has already taken place. Let's shift our focus here to what's happening in the national capital. And whilst we're talking about the national capital, Yamuna, the river, is in spate. There are proper meetings that the Chief Minister has called. Take a look at that. The water level has receded, but the Loha Pul, the old iron bridge, whatever you call, whatever you say, people's lives are still in danger. Those who are living below the Loha Pull, those who have their livelihoods and their houses are built below that dam, they've been vacated. Those low-lying areas are right now inundated. Villagers and people are worried, Varghese.
They are worried, and from Yamuna has been monitored by the authorities for almost 3 to 4 days, especially when reports have been coming in that the upper reaches of the river where the dams are located, they have been constantly pulling out water, they have been pushing out water in that area. So they have been speaking about why the Yamuna needs to be constantly monitored, and you can see the flow of water in the Yamuna is still high, it is still fast, and therefore we are thinking that there is a lot of water that is coming downstream as such. But right now the authorities have said that it looks like to be in safe limits, but they are constantly monitoring the level of water in the Yamuna river.
Well, what's going to happen is right now we'll have to look at that. Our ears and eyes are on the ground. News 9 will continue to bring you all the latest developments and well, nicely treated visuals and shots. You won't have to surf through the clutter because we're bringing you before and after, like and when it happens. Extreme rain events in the month of July, they are extremely heavy, but are they unusual or not? That's the bigger question. What kind of role does climate change here play? How will the government now execute compensate all the people that have lost their houses, their shops? 4,000 crore rupees of damage. I mean, Varghese, that's a lot of money. I mean, that's pretty much too much pressure on the state exchequer as well. How will the government go about this? Because this is not just one state. And what kind of help will the center provide is going to be something
it's going to be
else to be looking at. Roads and national highways that have completely collapsed. Houses with dilapidated walls have gone down. It is these are devastating times, and the worst part is that unfortunately we've lost 91 people. Will this death toll and the number increase? That's also something we're going to be focusing on. Varghese, many thanks for joining us here with the insightful inputs. That's all the time we have for you. Keep watching News 9 Live.
BrahMos, stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China's navy has threatened its neighbors, and they are turning to the BrahMos for protection. The warship killer. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
With all this gear, you must be wondering if I'm climbing a mountain. Well, let me give you a wider look of this place. This is Asia's largest mountain of shame.
A mountain of waste, almost the height of the Qutub Minar.
When you enter capital cities of some of the biggest countries in the world, you don't have 3 garbage mountains waiting to welcome you depending on whichever side of the city you enter from.
The thing is that a lot of times we talk about landfills only when there's a fire at the landfill. You need to understand that a landfill is at fire almost throughout the year. It's only when the firefighters are not able to douse the fire is when it actually catches the nation's attention, the city's attention, or media attention.
The towering landfills worsen one of Delhi's biggest problems: pollution.
यहाँ पर आप रात को आओ, दिन में आओ, आप 1 घंटे बैठ नहीं सकते बाहर। इतनी धूल, प्रदूषण, महक, आप खाना भी नहीं खा सकते बाहर बैठ के।
Life around the landfill is a curse.
हमारे घर में जो बड़े हैं उन्हें अस्थमा के वो पेशेंट है, आए दिन उनको नेबुलाइजर लगाना पड़ता है।
डॉक्टर ने मुझे ये चीज बोला कि यहाँ का एरिया छोड़ के कहीं और चाहिए।
Delhi's garbage mountains are now